This is chapter 5, Wayne's World. Party on. Not. Carolyn and I had a great life in LA. We had good friends and belonged to the Bel Air Presbyterian Church, which is the church where Ronald Reagan used to attend when he was between jobs. I was friendly with him. We had a good spiritual life. We always had dinner parties because I love to cook. Carolyn's easygoing, loves to golf, so she liked LA, and she went back to work as a hygienist. And because she has a soft touch and is an artist, she was in constant demand from many LA dentists. They thought she was the best, and they fought to have her on the staff. Every weekend we went somewhere. If we didn't go to Palm Springs, we'd go to the mountains. We had good jobs, good money, nice place to live, could travel, no kids. It was just perfect. I know now it doesn't get any nicer than that. After 3 years at Fox, I went to work for Wayne Newton, whom I've known for a while. We used to run around in hot suits and lose weight, try to lose weight in the 60s. He offered me the presidency of Aries 2, the company he wanted me to start up. The idea behind it was that while he was in Vegas, I was to set up a record company and arrange TV and movie appearances for him. In LA, Kenny Rogers was starting to make inroads in Vegas at the time. So Wayne chose to stay in Vegas to maintain his edge over Kenny Rogers. I reported to Jay Stream, who was in charge of Wayne's affairs. He was a billionaire and president of the Arabian Horse Association worldwide. Jay had straightened Wayne out financially and got rid of his brother, the Newton brothers, and gave Wayne the starring role in the show. Jay had straightened Wayne out in every way. He helped him change his clothes, his act, and Wayne started to look a little bit more like Robert Goulet, and Wayne made a deal with Howard Hughes, with the Suma Corporation. They owned the Frontier, the Sands, and the Desert Inn. I think the deal nabbed Wayne $1 million a month for the rest of his life, as long as he didn't buy a casino. That's another story. So while I was working for Wayne, I was really working for Suma because Suma owned Wayne. Jay Stream asked me if I'd rather be in LA or Vegas. He said, I asked him, I said, should I be in LA or Vegas? And he said, as long as you stay out of that goddamn dressing room, I don't care where you are. You'll get sucked in if you go in Wayne's dressing room, and then you'll be as useless as the third tit on one of his stud horses. One day in Vegas, when I was playing blackjack, I happened to look up back at me, and out of the side of my eye, I spotted Jay Stream. He was a tall guy, looked like Red Skelton, if you remember him. And he was standing behind me. He said, when I turned around, he said, what are you trying to do? Give them back what we just took from them? He took me aside and said, if you want me to, I'll just take your check and deposit it directly with the casino, and then Howard Hughes can have the money back. Can't beat him, You notice we don't gamble? You bet I never gambled after that. No booze, no cigarettes. I lived like a Mormon during the time I worked for Wayne. But I think Mormons drink and gamble too. They do a lot of things that we don't talk about. So I set up an office in LA with about 18 people working for us. Jay would fly me to Vegas on his great jet plane, the Citation. It's only 40 minutes flying time. But I didn't spend too much time there. I agreed with Jay, who thought I'd be more valuable running the company away from Wayne. Plus, we had a lot of employees. Wayne is a star, and stars want their asses kissed all day. You can't get anything done, They change their minds every 5 minutes. Buy me a hotel. Peel me a grape. Is there ice? Is there enough ice in that drink for you? Wayne was recording an album with Terry Woodford at the famous Muscle Shoals studio in Alabama, the place where artists like Aretha Franklin and the Rolling Stones made recording history. He did a TV special once a year. He played 36 weeks a year at the 3 Sumo hotels, and it was always sold out, and 2 shows a night. And he did a week-long gig in Germany because there's an affection for the Germans with the Arabian horses. We added a stint at the Boardwalk Regency in Atlantic City. And occasionally Wayne would do the Tonight Show, but only when Bill Cosby was hosting. He hated Johnny Carson because Johnny implied he was gay, which he isn't. And once Johnny began appearing at the Sahara, Wayne felt competitive. Wayne had a burning desire to own a hotel in Vegas. Jay Stream advised him against it. He didn't think Wayne should be competing with any of the Sumo hotels, which were cutting into his checks. But Wayne was driven. He eventually built a hotel. We built the Shenandoah across the street from the MGM, but no gaming license, so it wasn't direct competition with Suma. But Wayne still coveted a piece of the gaming action. He when Jay had a heart attack, with his lawyers and friends, left to his own devices, he made a deal with the governor for a gaming license at another hotel, the Aladdin. He got the license and ownership of the hotel. It subsequently went under. Suma was probably never too worried. If Wayne wasn't born to be a hotelier, he was born to be a host. Wayne really knew how to throw parties. He'd let prize horses out on the front lawn, which was dotted with fountains. He used to have peacocks on the lawn. I thought that was a little fanciful and maybe even a jab at NBC, Johnny's station, but I learned that peacocks kill rattlesnakes, so it's important in the desert. There's actually a reason to have them. On the back lawn, he'd have a big barbecue with sides of beef and stars, and every other side you could imagine, with full complement of servants. I remember, oh my God, was it Pearl Bailey or Nipsey Russell and the Prince of Saudi Arabia? Wayne was a good friend and easy to work for, but he lived a different lifestyle. His day began at 7 p.m. in the dressing room and ended at 3 in the morning. He was very insulated by people who would say only things he wanted to hear. The servants, the bodyguards, the drivers, the handmaidens. It's not normal, you know. This is Wayne's world, and it didn't involve going to Kmart. Jay said to me one day, Wayne wants to do a movie. He said he wants to do a Western. I said, is this fantasy week? He said, no, he's a pretty good actor. I said, tell me. He acts like he likes me every night. He said, would you call your friends over at 20th Century Fox? So I called. Alan Ladd was the president of the studio, and Alan Livingston was president of the record company. I had access to these guys, and I said, I want to see you about Wayne Newton. How's Wayne? He asked. And I said to Alan, he's good. Why don't you and Wayne come and see him sometime? In that meantime, Jay Stream wants to have a meeting. We'd like to talk about doing a picture with Wayne. He said, okay, set up the appointment with the secretary, so I did. So Jay and I went, we flew in on the Citation jet. He came in from San Luis Obispo, picked me up in his, they owned all of those, who is the guy that's famous for Hearst Rent-A-Car? Roger, I just forgot his name for a minute. It's not in the book anyway. He owned, it'll come to me. See, you forgot. That's why you got to read your book. You forget the names here. Roger Penske. So Roger Penske and Jay Stream owned the Western Commanders, which is the places where they keep the airplanes, you know, and the private airports. And we got in one of our Hearst Rent-A-Cars from RCA from Roger, and we drove over to the 20th Century Fox lot and parked in front of Alan's office in one of the parking spaces right in front, the president's office. Went inside. He had all these couches. It looked like a Levitt showroom. Someone brought us coffee and tea, and Alan said, how are you boys? What's going on? What's happening, Joey? How do you feel? And I answered all those things. Fine. I said, Wayne wants to do something. He's got an idea for a Western. Oh, I like Wayne. I told you, Alan said, he's a terrific guy. He's done some good acting. He's a wonderful singer and all-around entertainer. We're really happy with him. And he spoke of this and that. We're on. And Alan started talking to Jay about finances and money and investments and property and horses and sheiks and the Saudis. And then we said goodbye and left. When we got outside, I turned to Jay and I said, we didn't make a deal with him. And Jay said, what do you mean? I said, we didn't talk about the movie we're here for. Jay said, but you made a deal. I said, I did? He said, yeah, you made it in the first 5 minutes. I said, I must have slept through it then. He said, no, if you don't have a deal in the first 5 minutes, you don't have a deal. You already made one. Just send him the paperwork for what you want. It's done. And he was right. If you think about it, in any sale, in any meeting, if anything clicks in the first 5 minutes, it's there. If it doesn't, it ain't there. You know right away. The rest of it is just posturing. The deal is done when you walk in and you sit down and here's what I'm here for, and that's the end of it. And then there are those people who drag out like a bad lunch and never get to what they're there for. So I sent the paperwork through and Wayne made a movie, he made a Western. For TV, it should have been easy for the rest of us. But what was in it? It was an uneventful movie. After working for Wayne, I hosted Satellite Live, which is the first satellite show, first satellite broadcast in the country. Broadcast live by satellite. Jeff Sudikoff, a genius from Boston, who was figured out how to make the government installation for satellites commercial. He hooked up two shows. So it was Satellite Live, a celebrity talk show, and Rockline, which aired on FM stations once a week and played music and interviewed recording artists. My show, Satellite Live, was broadcast live from Hollywood on Sunday nights, 10 to midnight, East Coast time, aired nationally on to begin with 60 stations. I had celebrities in the studio, and people called in with questions. Because Jeff's partner was Herman Rush's son, Herman was the president of Columbia. We put a computer in front of guests, and callers' names and where they were from appeared on the screen. This was more brand new technology at the time. Nobody had done that. My first daughter, Kristen, was born when I started hosting Satellite Live. She was born in L.A. in California. I had her on the air with me during the first show. Tom Cruise was great. He was a guest. He picked the baby up, and she peed on him. Well, Kristen's never been easily impressed. Working one night a week was pretty cushy. So I got a gig at KMPC in LA, a legendary radio station owned by Gene Autry. The station featured a lot of TV personalities, Wink Martindale, Bob Eubanks, Gary Owens, as well as Dr. Laura, Hilly Rose, who now sits in for Art Bell, the midnight space jock. The building was a block long, but it seemed about 2 feet narrow, but it looked like the White House. You know, you walk around the corner and find 2 prop sticks are holding it up. But in the front, it was the White House. I started out doing an hour-long syndicated comedy show following the Angels games. Then Jim Davis, the program director, decided to beef up the morning show hosted by Robert W. Morgan. He said, I'll make a deal with you. We sign off the station at midnight on Sunday for maintenance, and we come back on the air at 2 a.m. I need someone to warm up Morgan's morning show. So I'd like you to go on the air at 2 in the morning until 5. You can do whatever you want to do. Well, I did the Sunday night satellite show and then the comedy hour, but this led me into the thing for Morgan on Monday mornings. My life was still pretty cushy. The show on Sunday night on KMPC was signed off by Billy Graham. He signed the station off at midnight on Sundays. So I got on the air at 2 in the morning, and I figured, okay, that crowd's not going to be here. So I pushed the on-the-air button, and I said, okay, we're giving away a brand new Rolls Royce. I'll take the 5th call. And you know, the phone actually rang, and 3 people called me. I was spooked. They were probably religious nuts. I didn't think anybody would listen to dead air for 2 hours, but there are those who wake up for the sound of this national anthem. Some people must have fallen asleep with their radios on. They heard this and woke up and dialed. Thank God there weren't 5 of them, because I probably would have been taken to court. I built a show based on whoever came in and whatever oddballs I could find, kind of like what I was doing on WOR for 15 years. I took the attitude that people who are up in the middle of the night and the goofballs make a good match. I had a guy on the air who alleged health benefits. He was Matthew Katz. He was the lawyer and manager for Jefferson Starship, who became the Jefferson Airplane. He moved to Malibu, and he collected horses on a hill, so they were all hunchback. And he had the Starship bus there, but he was offensive because he lived off his own urine. And he drank nothing but carrot and vegetables blended, and then he drank his urine after he peed. He was the lawyer and manager for Jefferson Starship. Pissed them off, I guess. Some nutty nuts came to me on the weeknights, on the weekends rather. There was an order of nuns, the offbeat nuns, the Sisters of the Desert or something like that. They didn't wear shoes because they didn't believe in killing animals to provide leather. Yet they drove up in a minivan. I said, you better check those seats. And they were smoking something that smelled very strange. I thought it was marijuana, but it was herbs. Well, they said it was herbs, but it's not leather. Doug Moody was a regular on my show. He thought rock and roll had gotten very dull and had lost its bite. He wanted to restore its rebellious spirit. So he opened his studio to any groups who wanted to make records for a modest fee and who were willing to give him part ownership of their tapes. He wound up with alternative artists, the Dead Kennedys, the O's, the Wango Bongo, you know, that he had all those upbeat artists, you know. Doug got me a record with a song called My Dog Sex, and the drummer, Sandy Nelson, who had one leg and a hit teen beat, was a strange drummer with one leg. While Doug was pushing the alternative music, I was pushing the alternative talk. And at the time, Steve Allen was on Channel 5 in L.A. doing the Man on the Street. I was more interested in doing that sort of thing than I was in doing a conventional talk show, which I abhor. Conventional talk shows are merely family arguments which are on the air. I really don't like refereeing. It's not me. I know they're popular, but I don't give a shit. Whether people get to voice their opinions when they're voicing only anger, I don't think that's an opinion. I think that's only anger. Let them go to a primal scream room. Remember those? I don't want that in my face. Since KMPC let me do whatever I wanted, I took a microphone and a cord. We didn't have a remote mic available, so I went to the engineer room and I spliced together a long cord, 150 feet of it, across Sunset Boulevard. And I went into Denny's with my mic and I interviewed people who were in a booth, just like the man on the street. Someone drove over the cord. Our budget was pretty modest. I didn't have an engineer on duty, a union guy. I had a guy who kept the transmitter on and turned off my mic off and on when I was on the street. But one night someone drove over the cord, as I say, so I must have broadcast a good 15 minutes of dead air before someone told me I wasn't being heard anymore. I had no phone set up or anything over Denny's. I was just making it up as I went. Well, Robert W. Morgan came in one day and he said to me, "You know, Joey, you're the Rocky Horror Show of radio. I never know what to expect. When I come in the morning, I smell nuns. I find food over the floor. Was there a sacrifice here last night? Did you perform some kind of ceremony? Or did you get in a food fight with the sisters?" That was about it. Satellite broadcast, simulcast, computer screens. Let's see. I'm going to do another chapter here. We're going to take a break of this. This is the longest chapter I ever wrote in my life. The most talk I've ever done in my life, too. So we'll take a break here and then come back to page 108 in the Joey Reynolds Smile Big Umbrella reading. Oh, yeah. Don't tell anybody I told you this, but I didn't like the book. All right, kids, hiya. We're gathering around for chapter 5 and the rest of the reading here from Uncle Joey. I love Uncle Dirty. What happened to him? He was great. He was my favorite comic of all time. I didn't have a chance to put him in the book, but he passed away a couple of years ago. But he's a guy that was, he said his father was very cheap. He said he was so cheap that at Christmas he'd go out on the porch and shoot off a gun and say, "Santa committed suicide." That was my favorite guy. Back to my book. All right. Let us smile over an umbrella, but don't get a mouthful of rain. And this is the page 108, the second part of chapter 5. We're almost done here, so be patient. Net gain. Satellite broadcast, simulcast, computer screens, displaying callers' names. We take all this technology for granted today. It's hard to remember, too, when we didn't have cable, let alone color TV, and we've become accustomed to the next big technology game, the internet. The net is the CB for typists. That's what I call it. The internet good buddy is it's an anonymous screen name, but you have to know how to spell and write or you can't use the internet. It's good to know that in a nation that's constantly fighting illiteracy, because we spell craft, K-R-A-F-T, cheese, we haven't completely dumbed down our entertainment media. To take advantage of the new media, new jobs, new entertainment, you still have to master the basics. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Entertainment is a form of communication, as you know, and in the case of the internet, it's two-way communication. You can be a part of it either by joining a chat room or by posting your own webpage, so you better be sharp. And now more than ever, we need to improve our communication skills. Maybe the internet is God's way of giving us another opportunity to do just that. So we go into the story now in chapter number 5. Satellite Live was carried on KOA radio in Denver, so I was invited to do a live overnight television show. It was simulcast on KOA TV. In fact, first one in the country, first simulcast. And a guy from the president of Westinghouse, when he moved over to General Electric, hired me to do the all-night live show. I was still on Sunday nights from Hollywood, so I commuted from LA to Denver every week until I got tired of that and moved the family to Denver. I did the KOA TV show totally live without a 7-second delay. In those days, equipment used to delay sound as well as video, so the Sony video multi-track recorder, which cost $1 million, was not going to be used just to watch people not swear. Station wasn't going to spring for that. Just let them go ahead with the F word, so what? We'll pay the fine. It's better than ruining the heads of the Sony machine. So we went by the seat of our pants without a delay. People called in and whatever they said got on the air. I never mentioned we didn't have a delay. I didn't want to invite trouble, but occasionally some bad words got through, mainly from drunks who called at 2 a.m. when the bars closed. I had my ENG director, Haney Howell, Of course, I called him Heine, Howell. I had him go to the houses of people with the TV cameras. That's ENG, is an electronic news gathering unit. And they were watching me on TV, so we bring the camera in while we were live on TV, and we watch them. And that's two-way television. We were doing that a long time ago. So I crashed someone's house in the middle of the night with a camera, inviting them to be on television. They were on TV. I was on TV. They turned their set on, and we'd carry it for everybody else to watch. And nobody sued us so early in the game, probably because my lawyer was the lawyer for Alan Berg, who was the man that talked too much, who eventually got shot from the neo-Nazi group, unfortunately. He was my friend, and he was also on the show a lot. Being a simulcast, I had to serve two masters, radio and TV. It wasn't easy. The radio program director didn't like the visual, and the TV program didn't like the radio. So out on the streets, people didn't care. They want to see radio, and they want to hear TV. So come on. I knew that right from the very get-go. That's why I've been doing a triple cast all these years. The program director on radio wanted to make more phone calls. And at that point, I thought radio was duller than dog shit. I wasn't interested in taking phone calls on the air, but that's the job, so I had to give up doing a lot of the visual stuff. We decided that to serve both TV and radio, I was never to acknowledge one or the other. I would just do the show. I would hold something up on the camera, but I could mention it. If I held something up on the camera, I didn't mention it. We didn't want to bore the radio audience with things they couldn't see, so I could still have the visual pranks, but they had to occur ancillary to the talk. It's a trick I learned to do pretty well. For instance, I had shelves behind me where I placed all of the paraphernalia from every local school, the club, and of course, the orange for the Broncos. And during the chat, the camera would pan across the shelves to the local TV audience. The local TV audience has something to relate to. It's like the Today Show, where the camera shows the people outside and you see them standing in front of the glass watching. And City TV in Toronto puts cameras down in the subway to pick up people's activities. Now everybody's on camera because they don't trust anybody. You get to watch that between events in the studio. People like to watch other people but don't need the sound. They can be listening to something else at the same time. It's a great idea. I don't like Imus and Stern on TV because their shows are not visually compelling. You're just watching these two guys with talking heads. So what? You can listen to them while you're doing dishes. You don't need to watch them. It took a full crew of 18 people for the live show. We hadn't figured out yet that the robot stuff and management always wound up assigning me staffers who really didn't want to be there. It was punishment to work all night. You had to have been naughty with the union to get on the shift. Invariably, the director would call for a shot and it would be out of focus because the guy was asleep on camera. That was always a lot of fun, out of focus. Alan Berg, controversial talk show host, who I mentioned. He is a frequent guest on All Night Live. Eric Bogosian played Oliver Stone's film Talk Radio, based on the life about him. Talk to Death, The Life and Murder of Alan Berg. And on Broadway, Talk Radio was on Broadway. Alan was an unattractive, gnarly man whose dog, an Afghan, had nicer hair than Alan. Alan, who used to be Lenny Bruce's attorney in Chicago, could be as funny and cantankerous as his former client. He referred to the courtroom as a theater of elegance. And on his radio show, he would really get people going. Callers would argue with him, and then he'd hang up on them. Oh, we got used to that recently, haven't we? But he was one of the first guys to do it. He really got people going. I always become friends with these guys, these wild guys, for some reason. I guess because they don't get to me. I'm amused by them because they're so cranky. One night, Alan was sitting on the couch next to my TV show, and he said he took better care of his hooker than he did his ex-wife. He said, I sent my hookers to college. I want an educated hooker. This was his sense of humor. It was a little provocative, perverted, and I loved it. Alan would go on the air and try to rile everybody up, and it worked. He was Jewish, so naturally he was vigilant for anti-Semitism. Eventually, that talk got somebody going. Somebody they took a gun and shot him in cold blood, which was unfortunate. That's how he got killed, a neo-Nazi group. The week before he was killed, he was on my TV show. He made some comments about neo-Nazi idiots, and I said, you don't watch your mouth, you're going to get killed. And he laughed about it. After he got shot, the FBI interviewed me. I figured I must be on the file somewhere. But, it was awful, awful. He was a genius, and I miss him. He only ever wanted to be, he said, New York is the #1 city in the country. He said he loves Denver. New York is #1, and every place else is #2. Literally. Before GE sold KOA Radio, It hired Roger Ogden, general manager, boy wonder for Gannett Channel 9 in Denver, the highest ratings in the country. Once at General Electric, Roger sold the radio station. What did he do? He was in on the sale of the radio station to J-Corp, now the number one company in the business, now bankrupt. They became a lot of things. One of them was, what did they call it? Infinity Broadcasting, J-Corp. They had other names. Anyway, they're gone. And now it's iHeart. That's the same company. Roger wanted me to finish my contract on TV and make a deal with my pay since I wouldn't be simulcast. He wanted to keep me on TV, and I don't want to be on TV. So I wanted to go back to LA. I wanted to do both radio and TV, and the radio was sold. So I brought Carolyn and my daughter Kristen, who was a baby in her arms, to a meeting with him at 1 o'clock in the morning, and they wanted to negotiate my out of contract, and I said, tell them. And he gave me my money, and I moved the family back to LA. Paid for the move too. I didn't do anything for a couple of years after that. I lived in Palos Verdes in a 10-room villa on the ocean. I was very spoiled. Carolyn had played golf. I would stay home with Kristen. I enjoyed carrying her around. By the time Kristen came along, Carolyn and I had done a complete lifestyle turnabout. We didn't drink or smoke. We just ate health foods, took vitamins. We did natural childbirth. We drank purified water. We got into physical fitness. Kristen's very mellow as a result of it. I think when you keep yourself really healthy, your child has a better chance of being a whole person physically, mentally, and emotionally. I was lucky to be able to spend so much time with my kids. Now there's two. We had another one in Philly, which we'll get to. You want your kids to know that you're there for them, but you can't expect them to fully appreciate it when they're young. Parental support is kind of like recovery. You don't know it's there until you need it. And people don't know anything is there until you need it. There's a great Chinese saying, when the student appears, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And there's always another teacher. So that's it. That's the complete chapter 5. And the next time you see me or hear me, it'll be on chapter 6, Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. Wait till I tell you how I made fun of Brenda Lee. But I didn't put that in the book. It was not a telltale book. Judith Regan wanted me to write one. She did Private Parts and so many telltale books. But I said, no, I don't want to do a telltale. Because then, I think when you do that, people hate you. I don't want to be hated. I don't want to be loved. I just want everybody to get the hell out of my way. I was Larry, what's his name? Larry what? David? I was Larry David. I should put that in the book. I lived with Kramer. Is that in the book? I don't know. I forgot. We may get to that. And of course, Larry David created the character on Kramer, the guy I lived with. So I was Larry David long before Larry David was Larry David. Anyway, here it is. It's a Joey Reynolds rap.